What is up, Packers fans, and welcome back to another edition of the Daily Draft. I'm your host and the publisher of Packer Report, Ross Uglem, and today we are brought to you by Brewski Light Lager, the best can in all of Wisconsin, one of the best darn beers I've ever tasted. Let's get into it. This one's going to be a popular one, and that is Texas wide receiver Matthew Golden Pros. He's very, very fast. Ran a blazing 40-yard dash, a sub 4.3 40-yard dash at the uh, at the NFL Combine, led all receivers. But it's worth noting that he's bigger than Xavier Worthy. That's going to be a comp that is common. Both Worthy and Golden coming from Texas, both Worthy and Golden running the fastest 40 times at wide receiver position. But 5'11", 191 isn't huge, but it's the size of a real NFL wide receiver. Pretty close to like Greg Jennings in size. He's bigger than the sprinter that Xavier Worthy was, which is worth mentioning. Like he's not Christian Watson that runs almost as fast as he does at 6'4", 215, but he is big enough where it's like, okay, we're not having to protect this guy all the time, which I think is kind of the case with like your Tank Dells and frankly even your Xavier Worthies. Short area movements are good for a sprinter. He can make cuts and run routes, and that's important when you are viewed as this like linear speed demon guy. Is can you run a route, or are we just running slants and goes or screens? Like can we do anything else within the offense? And I think eventually you will be able to. Can probably help as a kick returner. He did some really cool special teams stuff when he was at Houston. Matthew Golden started his career, by the way, at Houston before transferring to Texas. He does a good job throttling his speed up and down. Not all fast guys can do that. What I mean by that is he can kind of feign speed in and out of a route. He can modulate sort of what he's doing for a timing perspective, or just straight up a route running perspective, and kind of getting a defensive back off balance by not just sprinting throughout the whole thing. Understands when it's go time, understands when it's time to kind of deke. The corner does a good job with that as he's eating up cushion. By the way, he eats up cushion in a hurry. You would imagine that is the case for a guy who runs as fast as Matthew Golden does, but my goodness, he eats up cushion. The last thing I'll say on the pros side with Matthew Golden that I think I noticed on film, and I think you guys will appreciate, is he's got good body control, and I think ultimately he has a better catch radius than you would assume for a 5'11" wide receiver. I think a lot of people would see 5'11" and even see slot. He's not that, but he does a good job with the ball in the air and does a good job with catch radius, where a lot of time you say, okay, he's the fastest wide receiver in the draft and he's 5'11". You think you probably have to put it on him. He does have some decent flexibility, some decent body control, some decent balance to go make some of those catches downfield in the air, and to do some things from a ball behind him, ball low, ball high standpoint that you wouldn't always guess. Guys, buy the Green Bay Draft Guide powered by Pack Report. It's the number one way to support us, but it's not a donation. You're going to get a 7-round Packers mock draft. You're going to get Packer People by Jacob Morley, which is his tiering system that really narrows down what the Packers are going to be looking for. You're going to get My Packers Big Board. Just an awesome piece of content, and something that I really, really hope we get to share with you guys. Cons: not successful against man coverage. Granted, he didn't play against a ton of it. The number of routes that he ran against man, it's not a big sample size, but he did not succeed. And I think that's worth noting when it's one of the things, and we'll talk about that when we get to fit. It's one of the things that was a problem, or it's one of the things that Green Bay needed to do better with. He can and does get jammed. Not a particularly advanced release package, far from a Devontae Adams, right? And so with that limited release package, again, a lot of what he's seeing is off zone, so he's not having to dip into a release bag, but that release bag is pretty thin. There's not a whole lot there. Kennan does get jammed. Also needs to play stronger at the top of the route. I'm not saying he needs to push off, but when he's playing against physical corners, especially when you're still allowed to play by college rules, he can get out physical. He can get out physical at the top of the route, and if it's not, a route that's sort of run free of any disruption, which again leads to why he scares me against man coverage. Excuse me, it did not go that well. Not a consistent catcher of the football. I personally think they're more concentration drops than he has bad hand-eye coordination drops, but it's got to go in the cons because it's not great. Not considered. I noticed that he was not consistent with his effort, especially one of two things: if the ball's not coming his way, or he thinks he didn't win. Meaning, like, there's not a ton of scramble drill stuff. Like, if he thinks he ran a route and the corner guessed right, or he just didn't beat him and he's not open, I think effort level drops off. And again, if he doesn't think the ball is coming his way, there's not the same urgency. That's some stuff I don't love. Not elite after the catch. Like, he'll run away from you, obviously, but not breaking tackles, not juking and jiving, not creating missed tackles. He just isn't that dude with the ball in his hands, and not much of a run blocker. And that is going to get us right here into our Packers fit. He would provide the speed that they need, just in literal track speed. Needs to block better. In general, they have wanted their deep threats to be taller. Jordy was 6'3", MVS is 6'3" or 6'4", C-Dub is 6'4". They have not had this short, like, long, deep guy, I guess, since like early Jennings. Early Jennings was Brett's bomber guy, and he was 5'11". But it's been a while. Like I said, their bombers have been Jordy at 6'3", MVS at 6'3" or 4, and Watson at 6'4" or 5. They like the bigger body, go get it type downfield dudes, and that is not what Matthew Golden is. Does not solve their problem yet of having a man beater. That's not what he does. And he does fit their size parameters, even if his size isn't a big time positives. He checks the boxes, if you will. Overall, second round grade, 51st player overall, a starting wide receiver, and someone I would love at pick 54. I would not love it at pick 23. Let's do it short and sweet. Drink Badger State beer, buy the draft guide, and go Pack Go.